We are back, kicking off Season 4 today with my guest, Chang. Jere is an educator in the state of Georgia. You may be familiar with her very popular page on TikTok at Miss Chang Gifted. Did you know that Jere lives with Spina Bifida? During our conversation, we talk about our journeys of living with Spina Bifida and why we agree that it's okay to be different. Let's get into this conversation. I would like to welcome everyone back to another episode of the Our View podcast, where we aim to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I am happy to welcome my guest on today's show, Chang, and I'm so excited to have you on. As I mentioned to you in planning this, I follow you on TikTok, and it's Miss Chang Gifted on TikTok. Yes, so I am so excited to have you on, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can talk about.
Yeah. So I start off my podcast very similarly with every episode and just asking my guests to um, tell me a little bit about themselves and to share one fun fact about you.
Oh, okay. Fun fact. So, my name is Jere Chang. When you hear me talk, you can tell I'm from the South. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I actually grew up in a small town about an hour north of Atlanta. I live in Atlanta now. I had to get out of the small town life. And a fun fact: I was Little Miss Sugar Hill Beauty Pageant Queen, and when I was 10 years old.
Yes, that's so fantastic. That is so great. I love asking that question to my guests because I never know what they're going to say, and everything surprises me. Oh, that is so great. I like I said, I follow you on TikTok, and I appreciated your content. And one specific post that I came across was when you were talking about your bladder function. I think it was something to the effect of you have a hidden disability, and you were talking about the neurogenic bladder and your spina bifida diagnosis. So I was, caught right then and there. And more recently, a week or so ago, a friend of mine shared that post with me, although I had already seen it. And that is how you and I got in touch. I got in touch with you. So can you share with us your experience of living with spina bifida and how it impacts your life?
Absolutely. So it's kind of ironic that this is so first of all, I'm going to add that I'm gay, and growing up in a small town in Georgia, I was closeted for years. That is going to be relevant in just a second. And I was very insecure about it. It took me years to accept myself. But growing up with spina bifida, I was tenfold more insecure about having a disability than I was about being gay, or just kind of like tomboyish, if you will, like for lack of a better word, in a small town. And like I said, it was a hidden disability for me. So when I was born, I did not appear to have any disability at all. I didn't have any kind of like indentation on my spine, my legs. I mean, of course, you can't walk when you're an infant, but I walked a little bit later. But everything just appeared like typical. I started getting infections and things like that, kidney infections. At first, the doctors thought, for lack of a better word, they just thought I was slow. That was kind of their words in like the late 70s, early 80s. They said, she's just slow developing, hard to teach and all that. A lot of back and forth between a lot of doctors. They come to find out, they diagnosed me with spina bifida and a neurogenic bladder. I had surgery when I was 16. I mean, my apologies, when I was 6. And they basically told my parents, if we do the surgery, it's risky. It may leave her paralyzed from the waist down. She'll be in a chair, whatever. If we don't do the surgery, it's kind of unpredictable. Maybe when she's 13, the nerves had connected to my spine, they might snap. And she may be paralyzed from the waist down, but we don't know. So it's just kind of like roll the dice. What do you think? What do you want to do? Let us know. So my parents opted, mostly my mom, a single mom, opted for the surgery. It was successful, which left me with a neurogenic bladder. And as a result, self-catheterization. And I do intermittent. Some people, when I made the TikTok, were like, oh, you just have to walk around with a catheter all the time. I'm like, no, it's not like that. Because people have these horror stories, like their uncle in the hospital who had a catheter. It's horrifying. It's not like that. First of all, you just get used to it. And so I have to do that. I was very closeted about it. I didn't want teachers to know. I didn't want my friends to know. I would hide catheters like up my sleeve, in my socks, in my shoes. I was so not hygienic about it at all, which could be dangerous.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until actually in my 40s when I started, I did a TikTok, and this was my second one, the one that you saw. But the first one was for teachers. But hey, y'all need to let kids go to the bathroom because you don't know why kids are asking to go to the bathroom. And here's an example. Like you look at me and I appear like no disabilities. I don't have a 504. I appear as a typical student who's just kind of wanting to go to the bathroom after we just went. But in reality, I didn't go with a class because I was hiding my disability. So that was kind of why I started doing those TikToks to share, what students are going through.
Yeah, and I shared this with you before we started recording. I wanted to share your story and your experience of living with spina bifida because it is referred to as a snowflake disease diagnosis where everyone is different. And I wanted to share your experience because it's true. Your experience of growing up with spina bifida is much different than mine. You could definitely tell that I had a disability. I used leg braces and crutches. I used a wheelchair. And then we are very similar in that we both have to catheterize to empty our bladders. So I didn't have my surgery until I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so until then, I actually had to wear Depends, adult diapers.
Yeah,
Yeah, so because my
which
bladder just wouldn't hold anything.
as a kid,
Yes,
I mean, I had to do that in first and second grade, and it was horrible. Like I went,
yes. Yeah, so all through elementary school and part of my middle school years, seventh grade, it was, I don't know what the other children thought, but I had to go to the nurse's office. I
yeah,
had to go to the nurse's office because she had a private bathroom, so I was able to change myself.
yeah.
Um, but it was something where I don't know if people knew about it. I didn't talk about it. Yeah, again, it was just something that I kept to myself. And if people found out, or some of my close friends might have known, but other than that, it was something that I never talked about. And then I had actually it was the third surgery on my bladder that worked, um, where I was able to uh, hold urine in my bladder and empty it through catheterizing myself
Cool, yeah.
every yeah. So even now at 40 years old, I'm still, like you said, intermittently cathing myself every 4 to 6 hours. uh, and that means being careful of how much water I drink. So it's like an old person. I have to stop drinking at a certain time so I don't have to pee too many times at night. But and that's something that I found out as I got older. Okay, if I keep drinking water at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I have to get up and go to the bathroom more often. So, but then at the same time, because of my disability, I can get easily dehydrated. So I have to have to still drink water. So it's a whole big fun puzzle and game sometimes with trying to figure everything out. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so I really I can definitely relate to you sharing that you didn't tell anybody and you kept things to yourself and just you did what you had to do, but it wasn't something you openly shared.
I remember a story. I mean, and I'm 49 years old, and I was like in seventh grade, and this is like three-way calling. This was way before Zoom phones and all that. And you could call somebody, and you could click over and call somebody else and have three people. Well, when I was in middle school, we would have crushes. Well, I had little boyfriends because, of course, I wasn't allowed to be gay, and so we'd have little crushes on little boys or girls, or whatever. And I had a crush on this little boy, I guess. And my friend said, "Oh, well, let's call him and see if he has a crush on you too." And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." I'm so excited. She's like, "Okay, now you're gonna be quiet, and I'm gonna call him, and I'm gonna say, hey, Jerry has a crush on you. How do you feel? You check yes, no, or maybe." So we did, and he was like, "Oh, nasty. No, that's the girl who pees in her pants."
Oh no.
Right. And so, and as a 13-year-old, that was just, and I was just sitting there like, oh gosh, what do I do? So I just casually hung up the phone. I was like, I don't know what he was talking about. But
Oh,
and those scars, it sits with you.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, it
why
definitely does.
Absolutely. That's one reason when I shared my first video, First of all, I was shocked at the number of comments on that video of how many people have spina bifida and how many people who commented didn't realize how common it was. I was floored. And so
Yeah.
then, you know what, I'm going to start speaking about this more often so young people can see like it can get better. The teen years might be a little rough, but get through those teen years.
Yes, please. Get through them. It is and I think that is what I have found, especially in the last almost 2 years with living through this COVID pandemic, and being online more with social media, Instagram, TikTok, seeing the large presence of those who have disabilities, and again, just connecting with people like yourself, and seeing how common spina bifida is, just using that as one example. um,
It's normalizing so much out there. Uh,
yes, yeah,
um,
social media is normalizing a lot of conditions, a lot of diagnoses, and for me, I was the only person in my school growing up. I went to public school through 6th grade, and then I went to a private school for 7th and 8th grade, uh, just because my parents were nervous about sending me to a very large public high school uh, that had 12 or 1300 kids in it. So they wanted to try to ease me into that by sending me to a middle-sized private school for 2 years. So I did that, but all through school through 12th grade, I was, with the exception of maybe one or two others that happened to come to the school, I was the only one that had a visible
yeah,
physical disability like myself, where I used a wheelchair in school every day.
yeah.
Um, so it was hard to find people who had any type of disability that they were willing to openly talk about, and it was even more difficult to find people who had spina bifida.
Oh,
So yeah, I know when I was younger, I was connected to the Spina Bifida Association. They have a Philadelphia and South Jersey chapter that I was involved with, and we would get together and take trips to the circus and things like that. But other than that, and then just you honestly just want to hang out with, or I'll say I will. You just want to hang out with your friends, and do the stuff that they're doing. So and thankfully, I had found a good group of friends who were willing to uh, learn about me, learn about my diagnosis and the things that I needed, and let me participate in their groups activities and things like that. Again, going back to your TikTok, because it's just so great. You are a teacher of gifted students. Can you share with us what that means, and some of your duties, the job that you do?
yeah, sure. So gifted and talented education is basically students who excel in one or more subject area and or the visual or performing arts. The word gifted in itself is problematic because for a lot it implies that folks are not gifted. I did not coin the word. It's just the word that's used in education. At my school, we don't even call it gifted because of that very reason. But basically, they're neurodivergent thinkers. So you could have a child, and I teach elementary school, 1st through 5th grade, who is totally gifted in math, but maybe asynchronously struggles in reading, or someone who is like a virtuoso on the violin, but just unmotivated to do well in traditional classroom school. And then you have those kids who are just like top of the line, super, super brilliant and everything. What's different between a gifted child and a high achieving child is a high achieving child is someone who is totally smart, probably a straight A student, does well, pays attention, takes notes. A gifted child, and of course, these are generalizations. You cannot take a group of people and lump labels on them. But a gifted child, often you have to tell them fewer times. You can just tell them once, or they already know what you're getting ready to teach, and they will correct you so fast. I mean, I was in 2nd grade. The girl's in 5th grade now, and I never say kid names. And I said, okay, we're going to learn about the solar system this semester, and then next semester we're going to learn about folks, who've explored the solar system, whatever. Tell me what you know. And this girl basically just outlined all of my lessons and beyond. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to teach this girl? And now consult with her, like, hey, did I get it right? So some of them, and then even in giftedness, you have mildly gifted, moderately gifted, and highly gifted. So my job is they spend 1 day a week with me. I pull them out of class. It's called the pull out model. And they spend all day with me, and we do, my standards are creativity, logical thinking, research, problem solving skills, leadership skills. And beyond just me teaching them and exploring things with them that they may not get in the traditional classroom, they get to be with their peers who share similar learning experiences to them. Sometimes they're kind of labeled as the weird kids, the nerdy kids, and they get those kind of labels put on them. So it's just a day where we can just celebrate the uniqueness, the weirdness, the brilliance, and all that stuff, and it's just totally cool. And so, in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Yeah, it's your content is just really great. Um I forget what it was, but you had spelled a word that really wasn't a word. Sometime yes. Yeah, what was it again?
I had ordered a sign for my wall, and I was not having a gifted moment. And each letter was, I actually have a sweatshirt. It's here somewhere. And anyway, each letter was separate, and it was a fancy font. And the first word said awesome. I figured that out. The second word, I couldn't figure out what it said. The third word said things. No, I'm sorry. I just gave you the answer. It said start, and the last word said here. So it was awesome blank start here. And I had goofish, and I knew it wasn't goofish because it's not a word. And I'm sitting there and I'm in my classroom trying to decorate. And this, she's from Chicago, and she's like straight up Chicago, like rough Chicago. I'm like, Pastor, get in here. She's like, what do you want, Chang? I'm like, what's this word mean? She's like, I don't know what this word means. Like, and she's like, I forget this stuff. I was like, look. And this other lady was walking by, Miss Ford. We're like, Ford, get in here. What's this mean? Boom. That's supposed to say awesome things, Chang. So the T was upside down, and I had it as a G. I had the U was supposed to be an N. So it's supposed to say awesome things start here. And I just couldn't figure it out. And so it happened organically. So I put it on TikTok. People went nuts. And people said, you need to keep it goofish. Hang it in your classroom and keep it goofish. Boom, I did. And then I did the activity with my students.
Mm-hmm.
So I had them come in to try to figure it out. Number one, I did have a fifth grader figure it out. And then the next week I had them, I said, okay, y'all, if awesome goofish starts in this classroom, what does that mean to you? I'm not a huge fan of like toxic positivity. So I didn't say it has to be positive, but I said it has to build you up. If you are a sports person and you like to be yelled at, roo, 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 if you like humor, make it funny. If you do like uplifting and, sunshines and rainbows. And so they had to illustrate or write what goofy, and I have all those on the wall.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is fantastic.
Organic, didn't plan for it to happen. And that's what I love, like TikTok. I mean,
Mhm.
some of my colleagues who are my age are like, why are you on TikTok? I'm not for kids. I'm like, I'm becoming a better teacher every week because of stuff I see on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it really, again, it brings so many people together from so many different walks of life that,
Mhm.
yeah, that it just really exposes you to a different world of, um, I know a lot of teachers in my personal life, my friends, some of my closest friends are teachers. Um, and so to have, and that's why my friend who told me about you, that's, she follows you. She's an elementary school teacher. And yeah, so so it really just it helps with I think with creativity in the world of teachers. You get ideas from different people.
And that's one of my standards is creativity. And
Yeah.
like, this is a whole new platform to express like storytelling, you dancing, anything.
Yeah. So I know we discussed your spina bifida diagnosis, and um, it's hidden, so you can't really see that you have a disability. But in your in your job, in your profession of being a teacher, and during the time when you were um, applying to be a teacher and going to school to be a teacher, did you find any challenges that showed up because of your disability, because of your spina bifida.
I know when I say I kept it hidden because I was so insecure about it.
Hmm.
I Anytime it says like, "Do you have a disability?" I'm like, "No." I mean, I've totally kept it hidden, and now I'm just now started. Like when I made that first video, I think it went viral. I think it had over 1 million views. I was like, well, I guess people I work with now know I have spina bifida. Call it, or like even my students. I was like, 'cause a lot of my students they'll watch my TikToks, so they'll say they saw them. I was like, well, I guess people know now. I didn't realize what that was gonna do. I've never I never had a 504 in school. I was so shy about it and so insecure. So in my professional life, I mean, worst case scenario, I'll have to run to the bathroom while I'm teaching. And you'll hear teachers joke about this. We can't go to the bathroom when we need to,
Hmm.
but I would get a teacher to cover me while I run to the bathroom. That's the only thing that's ever, but I wouldn't even call that, you know, it would be so like wrong of me to even try to pretend that I faced any kind of discrimination because when I walk in, people don't see anything. I mean, I've run marathons, I've ridden my bike across Colorado. So yeah, so I don't present at all as having a disability, and people aren't, the only time I get kind of weirdness is if I'm ever in the bathroom and I use the handicap bathroom, or, people
Hmm.
are, hey, like kind of look at me funny sometimes. I'm like, I have to do stuff in there, I have to like get out all the little stuff. And
Right. I need some space.
I mean, if there's a sink in there or like a little trash can is always helpful. So I have to like secretly get my dirty supplies and sneak them in the trash because I'm still insecure about it. I don't want to walk out with all this stuff.
Yeah.
The only time I ever kind of sense a like weirdness would be in the bathroom, but in my professional life, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask that question because again, every diagnosis is different, and also again through the last almost 2 years, there has been a big conversation that I've been a part of through TikTok and the Clubhouse app, where people are talking about visible versus hidden disabilities. And I think that is always something important to stress. There are disabilities that are hidden, that are non-visible. So you may see that person coming out of the stall, the handicap stall, and you're thinking like, okay, well, you can walk on your 2 feet quite well, and but you may not think of
Other
someone other things that they may need to use that space for. So it is again, and I love your sweatshirt that you're wearing. For those of you who are listening, it's a purple sweatshirt that says "Be the Change," and Chang is in capital letters. Being kind, I think, is and extending grace and patience to other people, because you never know what it is that people are dealing with and living with. So, I really am glad that you shared that, your experience of, not having any challenges that have faced you in life, because every individual is different. We all have different needs and different things that are specific to us as individuals, and that is something I recently talked about with some friends of mine, where you may know 5 people with spina bifida, and each one of them has different needs, has different accommodations that need to be made, and some of them may not have any accommodations that need to be made, and that also needs to be to be noted and respected, and also talked about. So again, thank you for sharing that experience. The last question I have for you is about the book "It's Okay to Be Different." You read that in one of your TikTok videos, and can you share with us what that book means to you? Why do you feel it is important, that people know about that book?
Yeah. So the reason I read it on TikTok, I'm not a fan of like reading books on TikTok, but a nurse, I think she was a nurse at an elementary school, had commented. She said, I have a student who is in elementary school who either uses a chair, has spina bifida, is dealing with some kind of disability, and is having a really hard time accepting this about herself. Do you have any suggestions? And when I read that comment, it broke my heart because it sent me straight back to elementary school of how I felt different. I didn't feel like I fit in, and it just made me sad. And I was like, this video is not going to do well, and I don't care, but I'm going to read this book to this lady so she can show this kid. And I did a lot of text overlay in the video, and I'll explain the book in just a second. And I said, this probably won't change her life. However, it does get better. It can, not necessarily for everybody, but we're all different. So what I like about the book is by Todd Parr. It's brightly, the art is so bright. And there's another one like It's Okay to Be You, or I Love You Just for Being You, I forget. And it touches on a lot of differences. Of course, it hits on all of the big ones, race, gender, disabilities, a lot of those. I have two moms, I have two dads, a lot of those hot topics, if you will. But it also hits on little things that kids might find that are different about themselves, like just wearing glasses, or one girl, she's eating macaroni and cheese in the bathtub, being kind, saying no to bad things. And I used to be a general ed kindergarten teacher. And I love this for any elementary school. I would give students, we would read the book, or I would read it to them, and I would have them identify something about themselves that is different. And I would facilitate this conversation. I said, now share something you're comfortable sharing. And some kids would say stuff like, I don't like raisins. Okay, that's hard for you, living a hard life out there. You're gonna be all right if that's your biggest difference. Our school's pretty diverse, but you may have like a biracial kid would be a good example. I have a brown dad and a white mom, and that makes me different. My hair is different, or whatever. Freckles, things like that. And then I would give all the kids like glue sticks, scissors, construction paper, and they would kind of mimic the art, and they would make these beautiful portraits. And It's Okay to Be Different, and it would kind of mimic the art from the book, where like your face could be green, your ears could be pink, but you would highlight something that was different about you. And so like mine could be like, I have wrinkles, and I would take like black and cut out wrinkles, and I'd really accentuate the wrinkles on my face, and for a kid, and we would hang them up, and it kind of had kids think that even if it's small, there's something different about all of us. For some of us, it's not big. You're not the only one using a chair in your school, or you're not the only non-binary kid in the middle school. But there's something about you that is going to go against the norm, and it's really neat. And that's what I love about the book, because it just kind of, as simple as it is, it can hit home to everybody.
It really can. And I love like you said, it hits on the main hot topics that you hear about commonly, race and gender and disability, but it does hit on the small things
Yeah.
that people may not think of as differences, but even the example you gave for yourself with having wrinkles,
Yeah.
it's that's something different, and it does start great conversation. So that's really what I
And
liked about it.
those simple things are a big things.
Mhm.
And then a lot of people are like, oh, like I was joking about the kid with the raisins. I mean, that is kind of a silly one. But for some kids, not having the right shoes is huge. If everybody's got on the cool shoes and you don't, that's hitting hard for somebody.
Yeah, yeah. I participated in a conversation yesterday for another podcast, actually, and the question was brought up: what can parents do to help those within the disability community? How can they help their children become allies and become understanding of people with disabilities? And the one thing that I mentioned was, those books like It's Okay to Be Different. Purchase those books for your kids, for your friends' kids. Let them read, let them see differences, let them, for Christmas and birthdays, purchase the wheelchair Barbies, purchase the toys.
And I'm loving now there are more books now as opposed to when I was a kid, where it's like the book with like the little black boy is not, hey, this is a little black boy and he's great. It's just a kid who happens to be brown skin and he's the main character. I
Absolutely.
like a kid who just happens to be in a wheelchair, but it doesn't ever really say, hey, Bob is in a wheelchair, look at him roll and life is great. You should accept him. It's just more normalizing, just putting these characters in books, more of that. And to me, it's exposure.
Yes.
First time you see somebody in a wheelchair or a little person, for example. It's like, oh, that person looks different. I've never seen that kind of person. But the more you see somebody using a chair or a little person, or whatever, it's like, okay, it's just another person using a chair, or somebody who's not as tall as everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like 2 mom families at my school being in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really that big of a deal at all.
Right.
But a lot of people, it's still a huge deal.
So it's, again, like you said, it's the exposure and
It's giving kids a safe space to ask those questions. Like, totally, it's totally like, if my kid, well, my wife's Black, and so our kids are totally exposed to like different kinds of, but like, let's say my kid saw a little person in public, like, and was like, why are you so little? I'll be like, okay, first, like, let's work on tact. I would apologize to the person, be like, okay, we'll ask some questions when we get home. Like, that's how you learn, is to ask questions. You just gotta learn like what's appropriate and what's not.
Right.
And kids attack as a teacher, I can tell you straight up, not. Walking down the hall one day, and the kindergartners, they're 5, typically 5/6. They are your best wing people. You are beautiful. You are fantastic. But then don't get it twisted, because the next day they will drag you. I'm walking down the hall one day, just minding my own business. The girl's not even in my class, and I have on short sleeves, and I'm just walking, going to make copies. And she's like, "Hey!" I turn on my what? She's like, "What's wrong with your elbows?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I can't even look at your elbow. It's not easy." So I'm trying to look at my elbow. I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "They're wrinkly." To the teacher bathroom, I'm looking at my elbows. Like, I guess I need to buy some better lotion. Like, they are hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is too funny. And
you look like a boy, another kindergartner. And I was like, well, this is just how I look. This is how I like looking. And then this other kid was like, maybe she's like a girl boy. And they're arguing with each other. And I'm like, this is just how some girls like to be. I like having short hair. I just, kind of simple. And she was like, no, you look, it was like the Scarlet Letter. Like, shame. Why do you look like this? The parents are not exposing you to much.
right. Oh wow. I really enjoyed this conversation and appreciate you taking this time out to speak with me, and I am very grateful to have shared this time with you. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'm excited for everyone to hear this episode.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and tell us what you liked about the episode. If you watched on YouTube, be sure to leave us a comment, like the video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Was there something in the conversation that you learned or something that made you laugh? Share this episode with a friend. You can follow Jere on TikTok and Instagram at Miss Chang Gifted. That's MSCHANGGIFTED. And make sure you're following us on the same platforms for more disability-related content at Our View for Life. That's OURVIEW, 4 LIFE. I thank you for listening.